Black woman loses job after saving injured millionaire. Next day, 2 helicopters land at her house. Layla Hayes was tired, but not defeated. Working as a security desk attendant at the prestigious Sterling Tower was a soul-crushing job. Every day, her EMT training felt more and more like a cruel joke, a license to save lives, spent instead handing out visitor badges for minimum wage. Her boss, Mr. Leonard Finch, was a man who lived by the rulebook, a tyrant of tedious policy who believed humanity stopped where the company liability began. Layla's contract was clear: she was strictly an administrative attendant. Under no circumstances was she to interfere with any medical or security incident outside her designated post. That afternoon, the Sterling Tower shook. It wasn't an earthquake, but the sickening thud of a high-speed collision right outside the building's main revolving doors. Before the echoes faded, the high-pitched, insistent sound of a trauma alert began to shriek from a crushed black sedan. Panic exploded in the lobby. People screamed and scattered. Through the shattered glass, Layla saw the scene. The sedan was crumpled around a pillar, and inside, slumped against the passenger door, was a man covered in blood. It was Mr. Julian Thorne, the owner of the Sterling Tower and the multi-billion-dollar Thorne Industries. He was unconscious, his breathing shallow and rattling. Before anyone could move, before the 911 dispatcher even picked up the phone, Layla reacted. Her 5 years as a first responder took over. She vaulted the security desk, smashing her monitor in the process. Mr. Finch, who had been hiding under his desk, shrieked, "Hayes! Get back to your post. That's a liability issue." Layla ignored him. She sprinted to the crash site, assessing the scene in 2 seconds. Thorne had a severe head laceration, but worse, his airway was partially obstructed. He was drowning on his own blood. If she waited for the paramedics, he would be dead in 3 minutes. She forced the passenger door open, ignoring the jagged metal. She stabilized his neck with her forearm, tilting his head back slightly, and then, using her bare finger, she carefully cleared his airway, pulling out debris and blood. She didn't stop there. She found the source of the head wound and applied immediate, focused pressure using the silk scarf she ripped off a panicked bystander. She held him, talking to him quietly, keeping him breathing until the wail of sirens finally approached. When the paramedics arrived, they didn't take over, they listened. Layla gave them a concise, flawless verbal report: vitals, suspected C-spine injury, GCS score, and exact interventions performed. She then stepped back, vanishing into the chaos. Back in the pristine lobby, Mr. Finch was waiting, his face purple with bureaucratic rage. "You are a disaster, Hayes. You violated every safety policy, you damaged company property, and you interfered with an active scene. You had no authority." He slammed a piece of paper on the desk. "You are terminated, effective immediately. Collect your final check on your way out." Layla didn't argue. She had saved a man's life. The job was irrelevant. She handed over her badge and walked out, heartbroken but unbroken. The next morning, Layla sat at her kitchen table in her small, quiet suburban neighborhood, filling out job applications for EMT positions. She felt the hollow ache of being unemployed, knowing her integrity had cost her a paycheck. Suddenly, her window rattled violently. The sound was not a car or a truck, it was a tremendous, rhythmic thumping that filled the entire valley. Layla ran outside. Neighbors were spilling onto the street, pointing skyward in disbelief. 2 immense, black military-grade helicopters, sleek, silent machines bearing the unmistakable silver logo of Thorne Industries, were descending slowly. They were landing in the large, manicured common park across the street, kicking up a whirlwind of grass and dust. The first helicopter landed. The side door slid open. Out stepped a phalanx of silent, suited bodyguards. They formed a perimeter. Then, from the second helicopter, a man emerged slowly. He was leaning heavily on a cane, his head wrapped in a white surgical bandage, but his eyes were clear, focused, and fixed only on Layla. It was Julian Thorne. He walked past his security detail, straight toward her. Mr. Thorne's personal assistant, a stiff woman in a flawless suit, followed, carrying a small, metallic briefcase. Layla, frozen in her driveway, could only stare. Mr. Thorne stopped a few feet away, the roar of the idling choppers acting as a dramatic soundtrack. "Miss Hayes," his voice was rough from his injury, but firm. "My doctor tells me if you had waited 90 seconds for the professionals, I would be dead. You saved my life, and you risked everything for a complete stranger." He paused, glancing at her modest home, then back at the twin black war machines sitting silently behind him. "When I heard you were fired," he continued, "I fired the men who fired you. Mr. Finch is now looking for administrative work." He nodded to his assistant, who stepped forward and opened the metallic briefcase. It was filled to the brim with stacks of cash. "That is a $500,000 severance payment for your unjust termination. And this," he gestured widely, "is not. This is my offer." He put his hand on Layla's shoulder, his expression warm and sincere. "I don't need a head of security. I need a head of crisis response. I need someone who runs toward the danger, not away from it. I need someone who values a human life more than a policy. Your salary starts at $300,000, with a full medical team under your command. Your first assignment, get me back to the hospital. And you're flying the airship." Layla looked from the pile of cash, to the two menacing, beautiful helicopters, and finally, to the thankful eyes of the millionaire. She didn't hesitate. The choice had already been made when she vaulted that desk. "I accept, Mr. Thorne. But they're not airships. They're rotorcraft. And you should wear a seatbelt." Julian Thorne smiled for the first time. The guards cleared a path. Layla Hayes, the woman who had lost her job for being a hero, walked toward the thunderous machine, ready to command her new, far more exciting life.